All right, welcome back to Outside the Box, our department podcast driving performance in and around the city of Sugar Land, and really based on our audience around the state and some other parts of the country. We are back from a little bit of a unintentional hiatus. Life kind of happened. That's how it goes sometimes. But we are back. And to bring things back, I'm excited to have a guest with me today that has been here before. Welcome back, Kathy, one of my favorite guests from one of the original ones way back when we started. So thanks for being back.
Of course. My pleasure.
And thanks for not only being back today, Kathy's going to help us kick this thing back into gear with a little bit of a mini-series that we're going to talk about a few different things. So glad to have you here.
I'm excited to be here.
And some things have changed since the last time you were here. So why don't you tell us a bit about you and some of your professional background and the perspective you're bringing to the episode today, the whole show, really, and what's different from last time.
Great, Kevin. Well, I was not prepared for that. So I've changed roles. I'm still in the same school, but instead of being the assistant principal, I have moved up to the principal role. So I've been in that for the past few months, and I'm kicking off my first full school year with my staff in this new role. So it's been very exciting. We've also opening a new track in our district. So I'm part of a new track with a new area superintendent, some new coworkers. So it's an exciting time in my professional career.
Yeah, so number one. Good for you.
Numero uno.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
Okay. Well, today, I think you have a lot of great perspective for this conversation today as we talk about workplace culture, because you, as the face of the school, the one running your school, you have both a profound influence and responsibility when it comes to workplace culture. So what's the point of culture? What's our purpose as leaders when we talk about workplace culture?
When we talk about workplace culture, we talk about creating a place people want to work. And that is through action, not just words on a wall, not just words in a vision statement, but creating truly a place where people can grow, can learn, can enjoy coming to work. We both work in public arenas. Mm-hmm. So, we can't control the public. We can't control who we serve. We can't control the pay. We can't control a lot of things, but we can control the environment and just how we treat our employees, because employees don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. Mm-hmm. So that's our job as leaders, to create an environment where people can thrive and enjoy coming to work.
Nice. And right, like we're talking about the things that aren't dollars. Because again, in the public sector, we don't have a lot of spare dollars to throw around, right? So you're right that it's this place we want to be in, and let's not pretend that it's all sunshine and rainbows. Like, not everybody loves every last thing about their workplace all the time. You're right. Like the work we do can be challenging. The clientele we serve can be unpredictable and also challenging. And I think it's safe to say that many people listening, I know you and I, have also been in workplaces that we didn't completely blend with the culture, and it wasn't loving every little bit of the workplace. But there's pieces that matter, and aligning with that is important and valuable. And for us as leaders to create a clear idea of what that is, I think gives our people the best opportunity to align with that and see where they take satisfaction from.
Yes, right? Absolutely.
So what would you say, what is it really, like in your school culture, that is just, we say we want a place that people want to work in, but what's that feeling? Can you articulate that feeling, and what are some groups in your school that contribute to your culture?
Well, for us, we definitely have like the whole school mentality of like, we work hard, play hard. Like we can carry very, very heavy loads when working with children. They come, they're the only ones who don't choose to be in that school. They have to come to the school. So we carry a lot, and the job can be very, very hard. And everybody in my building, from my teachers, my custodians, my bus drivers, my child nutrition, my front office team, everybody works extraordinarily hard every day, all day. And so we try to create an environment where not only are we working hard, but we're having a lot of fun together. So we have, within our teams, everybody belongs to a team. Even if you are an outside, like we house like a GT facilitator, but she's still part of my one of my teams. She's part of our SPED team because everybody needs to belong. We have a core team, or not a core team, an instructional leadership team. Like everybody has a spot and we have different levels. So even if you're not a grade level teacher, you belong somewhere. And then we have the overarching, like we are all one team. We share one vision together.
You said, I forgot my thought. You said something that we're pack creatures. Humans are pack creatures. Having somewhere to belong is important and makes a big difference.
Yes.
I mean, there's all the memes all over the internet of the coworkers that make certain things tolerable and make them matter. So belonging to that team is important. What other teams, like you talked about all these different teams, but they're all different cultures within these teams, even the grade level teams you have, or the instruction teams, or heck, SPED has a very distinct culture of how they serve who they need to serve. How does that play into the big culture, and what bigger cultures are there beyond your school that you're dealing with?
So within our school, we all know, and I think that's part of setting your culture, is having that shared vision. We all know that we're working towards the same thing, regardless of which smaller team we belong to. We still have that larger pack that within our groups, within just my room, within just my students, are all working towards that common goal. And that creates the larger culture. And then even beyond that, like we're housed in tracks. So we know within different elementaries and different secondaries, we feed into that same track that shares a vision from our area superintendent. And then beyond that, we are as a district, we have the same vision and we have that same kind of culture. And that just kind of, I think it bleeds down. Like you get it all the way from the top, from superintendent into our tracks, that feeds into our schools, that feeds into our classrooms, that then gets to our students and all of our individuals who make up our campus.
And we experience some of the same stuff in these subcultures, that we have shifts that have cultures. We have stations within the shifts that have a culture, which is interesting that across 3 shifts, a station has a bit of a culture that goes across 3 shifts, but then each shift has its own culture that kind of permeates in between that. And there's leaders in each of those groups that designate it, but those shifts fit into the department, or even really the divisions, and the divisions make up the department. And the same kind of thing, we're part of this public safety team as a section of the executive team. Now we got the city stuff, and let's not forget the community, right? Like if we're here to serve the community, the makeup of the community, the values of the community really drive an awful lot of what our culture is, because
absolutely,
that's who we're there for.
And our community's in our building a lot. So they definitely are part of what drives that culture.
Yeah. Excellent. So talked about the responsibility of the leader a little bit, driving this culture, setting the tone, some expectations. How do we start building culture? I mean, culture will exist, period.
Yes.
I guess is the thing. That's what's incumbent upon us as leaders, to kind of drive the culture to meet the best needs of the community that we're trying to serve and be in the right direction. How do we start doing that?
I think the most important thing to start with is hiring the right people, hiring the right fit. That, and I always take my grade levels input when we hire, because they ultimately are going to work very closely with them. And we want people who fit, who have the, vibe versus the skill. You may have never taught 5th grade math, but you can learn 5th grade math teaks. I can't teach you how to be a team player, how to have fun with your team, how to be in that cohesive group. Like you really need to find your vibe. And that to me is the most important part, is finding the right people.
You had mentioned something that you ask about in interviews, and it's kind of silly, and I chuckled a little bit, but it goes to this, determining does somebody fit the vibe versus the skill. What's something you talked about? So
on our campus, we talked about work hard, play hard. We love to dress up. Like we are elementary teachers. So if there is a secondary, or probably any adult is like, no, thank you. But we had an inflatable race, like where we all bought inflatable costumes and we raced. Like we're ridiculous. So we ask in our interviews, do you like to dress up? Because it's important to our campus that you do, especially if you're joining my specials team, because they will dress up for any and everything, including when it's not a dress up day. So one day I saw them all separately and then didn't put it together until later. Somebody sent me a photo and it was October and they were like, oh, what's your theme day for the day? And I was like, it's not a theme day. They were dressed as the Addams Family. So
and they turned out, they showed up for that one. That was a good one.
And the kids love it. The staff loves it. It's fun. It's school appropriate, but it's just like, that's just part of our culture, is we're going to have fun. If we're going to work with little people all day, like why would you not have fun with them? So it is something we ask.
I think it's worth mentioning that not every school dresses up this way. Not every campus is that excited to be that silly, which means there's a place for everybody. Like somebody has a place, and fitting into culture is valuable and in belonging to it. Yeah. So it's not going to be enjoyable for somebody to come to your campus that is a bit more serious. And
no, but they probably teach high school.
Well, there you go. Somewhere for everybody. And I think the same goes within, I think that's where our subcultures become very valuable. These smaller groups that, for you, maybe I don't fit on this grade level team, but there's other grade level teams. We have other stations. We have other company officers to go work for. But rather than just sit and be frustrated in the misalignment with the culture, there's either the find where you start aligning or finding a better culture to fit in. And sometimes it is as simple as that. It's a different grade level. It's a different station. Maybe it's a different shift, a different school.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes people just need a change.
Sometimes people do need a change. And we'll talk about some of those changes because culture changes too. Like it's not permanent either. So we hire the right people. We talk about project what you expect. Right? Role modeling, somebody's always watching.
Well, as a leader, you are always being watched. You are always on display, whether it's in my building, it's students, it's teachers, it's parents. Somebody's always observing what you're doing. So you do have to project what you expect. And so if I'm going to say we work hard, play hard, I'm going to show like we do work hard, but also I can be silly. Mm-hmm. And like, specials knows they call me when it's parachute day because that's fun. And that's I can show like I can have fun with the kids too, or we can cover classes and like we can also get in and do the hard work. So
those are the days I put in time off and go volunteer at school when it's parachute day because that is, who doesn't love parachute day? And that gives us some of that authenticity and enhances some of the communication when we're out modeling that behavior. Right? I think it goes through many different discussions that your conduct, your behavior means a lot more than the things you say. Yes. That's really what shows. How do traditions and rituals, or some that you have, you had mentioned a little bit of dressing up in your inflatable races, and let's not act like that's the only time you wear your inflatable costume. You love that thing.
I have multiple now, so I just have them delivered to school instead of home, so you don't give me as much grief. But
what are some other rituals or traditions at school that play into your culture that when people think of your school, they think of your staff, they think, oh yeah, that mess, that adds up. It makes a lot of sense.
We do have a lot of fun, and we like, for as much as we work hard, when we play hard, we go big. So like house days are a big deal. Our school is all part of the Ron Clark house system, which is a whole nother podcast, so I won't dive into that. But for us on our campus, every single person, kindergarten up, and every single staff member, regardless of your role, are put in a house. So that's my custodians, my kitchen staff, my bus drivers, because everybody's important. And then every 9 weeks, we have a big celebration. So that is something when we go all out for. And there's a lot of pride. And you talk about belonging, that's another subculture. Like I'm part of house loyalty. So we lost by 1 point last year, which killed me because I'm super competitive. But, one of my PE pairs, she's house courage. And we go back and forth of who's got the better house and who can show up for their house on those days. And
this is the one posting your picture at the end of the school year saying Mrs. Leverance really appreciates House Courage. And
yes, we confused everybody because she put it up that we congratulated House of Courage, and it was House of Integrity that in fact won. And then Courage, like, wait a minute, why aren't we going to the silent disco? Miss Leverance's picture says. But it's just fun, and it involves everybody, and it's another layer of our subculture. We have other just things that we build as a school family, like our Thanksgiving potluck. We have a half day before our Thanksgiving break in the front office. We do turkey, and everybody just brings in something to share. And we all have that time where we just eat in the cafeteria together, and it's not anything structured, but it's just time together and valuing each other and what we all literally bring to the table when it's that kind of thing. But we do different traditions even with our kids. Everybody knows when we do a winter sing-along, and everybody knows it's going to be pajama day, and we're all going to be, last year was all 1,200 of us in the gym and cafeteria. That's when I learned my lunch ladies have a whole TikTok account and do dances and songs together.
And how were you dressed for that sing-along day?
I am always dressed as an elf. I have multiple elf costumes, so it was probably the elf on the shelf.
Was this elf on the shelf? Not Buddy the elf that year.
No, it probably was Buddy, because the best way to spread cheer is singing loud for all to hear.
That's true.
So that would have made more sense. That'd be more on brand for me.
We have some similar rituals in the fire service that we go with, and we talk about the belonging, and station pride's a big deal. Like here on the wall we have station logos that crews designed. That wasn't some send off somewhere. And what do you think? That those were people in the house, in those companies that designed those things, and something about eating together. Like we do that. Meals are a big thing. Spending that time together. You're talking about your meals at school, and man, there's just something about that bonds people, brings people together to share food. And it might seem a little bit more abstract, I think, in your world that, well, I'm a classroom teacher. I'm my individual. As long as my classroom is fine, everything's fine in the world. And it's a little bit more overt when you come over to the fire station that it's a few of us show up at a time in a group. So if a few of us aren't working together, it's very apparent that this cohesion's not there. We're not being effective. But that's where the cultural piece comes in of, no, you're part of something bigger, you're part of something else, and it's not just you, but your individual effort absolutely influences the bigger effort and this communal effort.
That's where that shared vision comes in. Because yes, we have the same thing, that you're in an individual classroom, but you affect your grade level team, which then affects everybody. So. And
in that, the challenge I'll throw at some of our leaders throughout the organization, formal and informal leaders, your individual effort absolutely drives the direction that culture goes, in a good direction or a bad direction. This isn't just I didn't drive it forward in the right direction towards the vision.
You can be a culture killer.
You can be a detractor, and you can definitely take people with you in a deleterious direction and take away from success, from effectiveness. So, yeah. As we talk about playing hard, though, we have some fun examples. We were talking about them before we even started the show. Pranks.
We have some pranksters in
Pranksters are fun. Up north, we used to refer to them as the Phantom. The Phantom would come visit because nobody would ever take ownership for some of even the funny ones. There were some really good ones, but Phantom gets all the credit. Do you have pranks? Do people come and pull them on you?
Yes, we do. And I think that's part of your culture, like approachability. You got to be able to laugh at yourself too, and not take yourself too serious. The work we do is serious, but you can't take yourself seriously all the time. We had my fourth grade team had an in-house prank war going on that eventually bled out to the rest of the school. One example, we were talking before we started, I had a teacher who printed 100 photos of one of her coworkers and hid them all over the building. And then people kept finding them and bringing to her to ask her if they won a prize. That same teacher got me a card for my birthday, and it was the 100th day of school. So, of course, I was dressed like I was 100 years old.
Of course.
And my boss was coming that day, too, because why not? And as I'm standing here with this card that won't stop singing, asking my front office for thoughts on what I do with this for the rest of the day, I look out to the parking lot and see my boss coming at me and start to panic and think, well, I'm just going to rip it and pull the battery out. And there's a parent in there. She's like, oh, I think there's glitter inside. And she was right. So I ripped it over a garbage can, pulled the battery as my boss is walking in and then explaining what I'm doing. And she thought it was hilarious because, again, the overarching culture, the people I work for mirror kind of what our building culture is. But yeah, it's just, you got to be able to laugh at yourself. And that, I mean, it's just stuff like that. It's funny. And it has now branched out. And now everybody knows about the fourth grade prank war because it kept going and they would cover each other's cards with Post-it notes. And it's silly, but it's fun. It's, again, that they work really hard and they deliver with their kids, but they're also a team that likes to have fun with each other.
I agree with the approachability piece, and I think it also shows, well, personally, and I think some other people, like people want to work for a human being. Like they want to work for a person, and I think that makes you very human. It does make you approachable, makes you very relatable, I guess. Well, even this morning as you came in and you asked, is that a Dutch bobblehead on my desk? That yes, I have a Chief Schultz bobblehead on my desk, as well as a picture of his little league team that he coached, because at some point pictures of our family switched and there's a picture of our family in his office. That's just what we do. I was actually in some interviews for assistant police chief candidates that were hiring a new assistant police chief, and we interviewed one. And I got to give him a lot of credit because he was an external candidate, but he took a jab at the fire department in his interview. That we asked him something about planning and coordinating, and he was telling me a story about we had this experience and these interactions, and we were coordinating with the fire department, which of course they always get everything they want anyway because everybody likes the fire department more than police. And he was very nervous. Like, no, I'm just joking. Like, I'm just kidding. I thought it was hilarious. I actually gave him a little bit more credit because he's a human being.
Yeah.
People want to work for human beings, and I happen to enjoy some of them. Like, some of them are funny.
They are.
That my Halloween decorations get rearranged sometimes, or I have a picture of my favorite rookie on my whiteboard. That's when I learned that's my favorite rookie. I didn't know who that was, but so you learn things.
Teacher had multiple pictures of herself in my office. I just found another one yesterday.
There you go. See, they're just fun. Keeps things light, because you're right. We do deal with serious business, but that builds the camaraderie, that builds us together, and right, just keeps us grounded in that we're human beings.
Yes.
Let's talk about culture shifting, though, because sometimes, like I said, like the permanence of culture just isn't there. Culture changes, and why?
Well, I mean, the community we serve changes, and just the world changes. We saw, both of us, massive shifts with COVID. Just things that had always happened no longer happened. And even just being in a school, the kids have changed, and we've had to shift how we serve and then how we react, and just within our own building culture. And for a while, just things were not as fun. You couldn't do a lot of the traditions. We couldn't have parents in the building as much. It did kind of, I don't want to say squash, but it definitely brought down. We saw a lot of people leave. We saw a lot of turnover in education because it was hard and it was not fun anymore.
Well, yours was a hard left turn, that it went from I like being around children and engaging in a classroom to get on a computer, somehow now become a technology expert on how to package and deliver curriculum virtually.
Yeah.
That you don't even get to see.
You know, see the kids. I did meet a lot of people's dogs.
So even that, like we talk about subtle cultural shifts, but that, you're right, COVID was a very hard left turn culture shift. And as you talk about losing people, that makes a whole lot of sense, that here's what the culture is now suddenly. And that doesn't align with what I'm good at, what I know how to do, what sparks joy, so.
Well, and for all the good and bad with change, like COVID forced us to change. We all suddenly became very good at technology, but then you keep some of that, because now we've seen, like, how can we hybrid that with our kids in the classroom? Their attention spans are shorter. You just see that, and that's not even COVID. It's just it's different from when we grew up. Everything is immediate for them. So keeping the attention spans, like, you got to move, and we have to adjust to that. So
yeah, it is. And the world changes. And we talk about traditions and rituals, and it's fun to keep some of these things, but sometimes they just don't fit anymore. And they're better served as memories and good stories than they are functional pieces of the way we do work. That there's been profound advances in how we pump water onto a fire, that there's no longer human beings pumping water on the hand tub. Like, we have the mechanics of it. We have motorized trucks. The technology you don't have chalkboards anymore.
Well, some of them do.
No,
but
you're over there.
But you talk about, like, when I started teaching, like, we had the document cameras, and you had to put stuff on the transparencies and get your little vis-a-vis, and now we have, they weren't even document cameras. Now we have document cameras. We have the overhead projectors, and I just had chalkboards when I started. Now most people do have whiteboards, but some of our older schools do have chalkboards. But it's just the technology. It was one time in my classroom, the projector went out, and it was like, I know how to teach without a projector, but how? Like, I know I've done it, but now it's different.
I think it's an example of when you learn better, you do better.
Absolutely.
And there's always, again, the world's always turning and always evolving, and there's challenging processes to find better ways to do things. And sometimes the quote better way isn't a better way, and we continue doing it like we did, but we've challenged a process to grow and make sure we are doing it the best way we can, because the last thing we want is, that's how we've always done it. And if that were the case, then our new guys would still be shoveling out the horse stalls, and that's just not where we are in the world.
And copying for vis-a-vis markers,
or the ditto machines that came out purple.
It's a little before my time, but you're older than me.
Okay. So let's establish this culture. Let's maintain a culture. What are some attributes that really go into maintaining or helping this shift of culture to meet the needs of the world?
Within our, speaking from the school side, like, just having that clear vision for everybody, because we've talked about all of the subcultures, but when everybody knows the one, like, what we're driving as a whole to, they know how to accomplish that within their own groups, and being consistent about your expectations. I have found that personally with my staff that they value that. They value clear, consistent communication, and that leads to a culture of like, I know what I'm doing, I understand my purpose, and I have the autonomy to do that. So I think that's a big driving force.
I agree with that, especially through change.
Yes.
That change can be uncomfortable, can be unfamiliar, and can evoke some emotions. But having the clear communication and understanding why we're going this way and why I'm feeling that way helps kind of move that through.
And we're going through some change now with me starting this year as the principal, and they know me because I was there. I've been there now 7 years. But the biggest part for me with that change is you need your staff buy-in, like, and input, because I'm up here with a vision, but then I need everybody, like, they're the ones doing it, and you need to give them that autonomy, like, okay, this is what I see, how do we get there? Because they have great ideas and great insight, because they're the ones doing the hard grunt work every day, and that leads to that culture of like appreciation. So now not only is it, okay, I see where we're going, I see the overall mission, and I know how I'm going to help us get there, and everybody brings something to the table. So I think making sure your people are valued and saying I value you is much different than showing I value you. So having your actions really match up with your words.
And I think it's a whole nother discussion for a different day of what you're accomplishing versus how you're accomplishing it, and the latitude.
Yes.
How you're accomplishing things is very valuable, and that's where I think worker value comes in how we approach that, how you accomplish. But big discussion for another day.
Yeah, we do a whole new episode on tight versus light.
Yes, we can. Let's talk about the impact of chain of command. That you have a structure in the school. You have a bit of a hierarchy. I think I work in a little bit more rigid of a structure, or at least a better articulated structure. Rigid is not the greatest word, but I think a more defined and articulated, because that's another thing that's rooted in our traditions, that we come out of military rankings where it is very structured and adhered to that way. What do you see as an impact of you passing messages down through some of your people, some of your leaders that are between you and the classroom?
So we have multiple leadership groups that serve different purposes. Like I spoke earlier, we have an instructional leadership team, which is like my coach, my counselor, my AP, kind of like and they run kind of the side stuff. And then I also have a group of teachers who are my grade level chairs, who are more of a management piece. So we meet and we talk about like, what are we going to do as far as like, we need to set some deadlines for service projects, field trips. It's a lot of the management side, but then they go back and they lead their teams. They're the ones who it's, hey, we know these are the deadlines. You are the manager of your team. You help make sure they hit their deadlines. Then I also have a group that is strictly teachers from each grade level, and they're our little guiding coalition. Their job is instructional changes. So they're the ones when it's, hey, we need to make some of these changes. They're the group I've met with most recently. This is where we need to go. How do we get there? They are the ones to bring that feedback of, this is what we want to do. This is how we're going to communicate it to staff. Like we've decided that when we communicate, I'm introducing them and then they're running with it. They're going to say how it's going to go, and they're going to monitor their grade levels. So that gives just multiple ways for shared responsibility, but also empower people to work with each other, to have those leadership opportunities, and then come back. So, but following that chain, like, you shouldn't be coming directly to me, you can, but like as far as teachers, parents, typically it's you go to your grade level chair. If you have feedback on instructional practices and how we're implementing different lesson plans or things, that should come to your guided coalition member who comes to those meetings, because it just streamlines it. It's not that I don't want to hear everybody, but it streamlines and it empowers those teams to really talk to each other. And sometimes they're more comfortable, especially when they're new into the building or just new to teaching, to talk to a grade level member as opposed to coming right to me. Yeah. And something else within the chain of command that is important and also can make or break your culture is like parents. That I'll have parents who will come straight to me, that they have a problem with something that has happened in a classroom. And my first response is always, have you talked to the teacher? Because that should be who it is first. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants you to jump to, none of us. Nobody wants somebody jumping to our boss when it's, hey, I haven't even had a chance to address it. Yeah. Now, yes, there are times that for both teachers have come to me or parents that, hey, we've been trying to work this out and now we need to meet as a group. Can you meet with us? Or can you help coach me through a conversation that I need to have with a parent? And I'm absolutely happy to do those. But if a parent has a concern, I always tell them, like, you need to go back to that teacher. And that's part of the culture too, is that I'm not going to override one of my teachers and say, hey, this parent came to me and here's what you're going to do now, when they haven't even had a chance. They haven't even had a chance to address that concern. That's not fair. We wouldn't want that. And that's not fair to them either, because that can be in schools, a major culture buster, that if I'm going to now overrule anything you're doing in your room, and when a parent comes to me, they're going to keep coming to me. And that's going to make you not want to come to work, because it looks like I don't trust you to do your job.
Right. And you're absolutely right that will be not even just schools destroying culture. I think that would destroy culture in any kind of organization, that if I'm telling you I expect you to make decisions in a day, but then when you make decisions, I decide something else anyway. And it can be unintentional, is the thing, that if I tell the battalion chiefs, we tell our company officers that run your company, and battalion chiefs run your shift, and you should be the person with the answers and information. You're right. It's happened a couple times that it's beyond the scope of that person's position. That it's, hey, here's the concern. I hear it. Here's the things we tried, but it's just a bigger issue. It does need to come to you. That's great. That's what we're here to do.
Correct.
And I think you're right. It undermines. I think it demoralizes 100%. And then here's the inconsistency in that message of, I expect you to lead and run your ship, but also I want to make these decisions behind you and not involve you. Like I said, it isn't necessarily intentional or malicious. That if that battalion chief and I aren't talking, he makes a decision, somebody comes to me and I decide something differently just because it's a conversation and it's different, and these are contrary decisions, man, there's some good friction. There's destroying the culture, and there's this battalion chief saying, why am I going to put in the effort to decide if you're going to do it anyway? Right. Which is then contrary to the culture we're trying to build, that, no, your battalion chief is kind of the authority for the shift, and you should be going to that battalion chief. And right, if there's some larger major issues.
Yes, there's always the outliers that, yes, so, the leader would need to be involved in immediately. But
there was even one recently that a firefighter emailed me, and it's, I want to have a conversation. I want to talk about a few things. And my response was that it's, does your lieutenant know? Does your battalion chief know? And it's, well, I don't think they can handle it. I think it needs to come to you, which ultimately, retrospectively, sure, it did need to come to me as a resolution, which is fine. My response was, your battalion chief deserves the opportunity to try and address this. And I had that conversation with the battalion chief, and it's, go have a conversation with this person. What I gave them was, unless this problem is directly involving that person, I can understand some concerns. And it was, no, it doesn't directly involve them. I just don't think they can handle it. But again, that's the culture, and that's the downstream communication. That's part of chain of command, is that battalion chief deserves the opportunity to be the one to say, this is beyond what I can and can't handle. Let me go get you some more resources, because we also expect those people to take care of the personnel in their charge. So if they're not even given a chance, then again, there's your detriment, that if we don't handle the communication the right way, or we don't kind of put some of the respect into that chain of command, which is a hard thing sometimes, that we talk about, let's have an open door policy and anybody can come in and bring problems. And it's not to say you can't come in and bring problems, but it's not an outrageous thing for the response to be, have you talked to this person first?
Yes.
How did this person handle it? And actually, I just learned, we'll talk about feedback in a minute, I got some feedback just Wednesday from these battalion chiefs that, here's what we do when people come into the office. And one of the battalion chiefs said, hey, can we know when you do that, so that we can follow up and make sure this person is getting the answers they need, or the information is correct, that they're going, that there's a reason they didn't go to the battalion chief in the first place. And that could be a whole nother discussion, but it might just be, it's easier to not.
Yes, and I found that too sometimes. Well, I don't want to have a hard conversation. And then at least in my role, is like, well, let me coach you through what that looks like. Because your teammates deserve, sometimes when it's grade levels, because they work so closely, your teammates deserve that. You need to go talk to them.
You do. And there's the building the culture, and there's the consistent part of it, that, no, hey, battalion chief, the expectation is you take care of your people. Somebody's got a need. And I heard about a need. Here you go. You need to make sure this person's taken care of and have the information they need. So it's both kind of a blessing and a curse sometimes. That one of my struggles with the chain of command is like the telephone game, that I would love the way I say something and the intention behind my words to make it all the way down to the firefighter and it be understood exactly how I intended it. But there's a lot of people between, a lot of different personalities, a lot of different factors in the day that frame your mindset of how things are interpreted. And that's just how it goes. And that's the value of the communication and continuing to clarify. But at the same time, your building's what, 130, 140 people, staff members that you deal with?
We just went from 123 down to about 95 with the opening of a new school. But that's a lot of...
But we're dealing with nearly 100 people. You can't deal with 100 people directly. Like, there's these structure in place for a purpose. But to bring it back to it, culturally, we need to kind of set the norms of how to use that and how to calibrate it. And taking in the account that, sure, like, messages are going to twist and change a little bit. So we just need to keep communicating in a circle to make sure, no, here's what the real message was. Here's the different interpretation of that one. And
be open to communication and clarifying, and not even just chain of command norms, but setting norms with your staff, period. We take that time at the beginning of every school year to set both a social contract with our staff, and then this year we're going to set staff norms as well, just like how do we expect each other to work together. And then our teams will do that within their own. That way, at the beginning of the year, like, this is what I expect of you. Here's what you can expect of me. And then it's something we revisit each time we meet.
As we close this out, Kathy, is there a challenge that we can take as leaders, as designated people driving culture for the group that we're responsible for overseeing and taking care of? What would you give us in that position?
Well, I love a good reflection, an exit ticket in the school world. I would really challenge as leaders to think about truly, like, what do you think people would say is like to work with you as other leaders? And then what is it like to work for you? And then ask somebody trusted, like, what is it like to work for me? And then the challenge is to listen. Just absorb.
I think as we were preparing this, I'm going to make a couple of visits next week because there's some people that I trust to give me honest feedback and not just things are great. No big deal, whatever. And not that every piece becomes actionable, but it's the awareness. It's good to know. Find the right person to ask, because there's also the extreme end of I'm just going to throw a tantrum and I'm going to shred every little thing just to be grumpy. But finding the balance between of somebody that will objectively tell you the challenges they're facing, the challenges you've created for them. And that's where we get some of that perspective and what we're actually doing with culture. So, well, do you want to close this out? What are we talking about? Where do we go next time?
So next time, we're going to be diving into feedback and why it is such a powerful but underused tool to drive your culture. So this could be praise, corrections. Everybody loves a good annual review. Nobody gets worked up about that. But feedback can shape your culture. It can shape and it can shut down or build up your people. So it's important you do it well.
Man, that'll be a fun conversation.
Okay.
Well, thanks for coming around today to tell us about the influence we have on culture and how we can take that in the right direction.
Always. My pleasure.
Appreciate y'all listening, and we'll catch you next time.